Okay, we are running live for the second part of the recorded lecture. So I still owe you a little bit the overview, and we had kind of managed to get halfway probably through the syllabus breakdown, some of the topics, but we kind of hadn't managed to really make it to the procurement strategy, which is kind of the, if you want, heart of how we decide first of all, what's appropriate way is to engage the market, if there's a market, or how we actually outsource and go about contract selection, tendering process, and ultimately how we want to incentivize as well our collaboration. Yeah, so. And for that, I wanted to give you at least a quick overview. So I think we actually had already a look at the tender process, and we familiarized as well in the small run in the workshop with how big the economic uptake actually is here in Australia. So it's a substantial part of the economy, very strategically central as well for the construction industry, of course. And now there was, of course, a question, and we, I think, arrived at that point where we were thinking like, okay, how do we actually decide which contract is the right one for us? And by the way, how do you pick this in the first instance? And I think in our discussion, we moved to the team element, but this is as well a question for any client or be it actually public clients or be it private clients, it doesn't really matter. You come to that point where you want to probably evaluate if there is a certain uncertainty, how willing are you to kind of take the risk on? There are multiple risks. There's kind of the organizational risk of coordinating many parties. So there is a risk of being able to deliver the actual product or service. Legal risk as well with standards and compliance if you are selling your product or your service, right? So this is just to name a few. But I mean, broadly speaking, it's really the capability of delivering this more or less with own capabilities or external capabilities. Yeah. Now, with this, I had a wonderful case actually prepared, which we sadly didn't manage to do in the last workshop. So we will look at this as an entry case study in our next workshop, which is a regional rail link project here actually in Victoria, so very close to the home. I will jump actually around this to not spoil the case too much, but we will have a look at what the audit office actually recommended in terms of how to go best about this program of different projects. So they split a project into sections and then recommended different strategies for tendering, contract selection, and so on. Now, there are some basic rules, and some that I inherited here from Colin Duffield, who does a lot of research actually in that space, particularly on the infrastructure projects for procurement strategies. He kind of listed this as the following in his notes. I'll show you in a second how I would probably structure this slightly different, but so he can kind of started off with a change of requirements throughout the process. So how certain are we about this? And that was the chestnut that we had in the workshop was, are you actually building what you have always built? And you're more or less fully capable of predicting this. Yeah. So here you may have clients in buildings or infrastructure like Lidl, the supermarket chain. Yeah. So if you or Aldi, yeah, or Woolworths, they build very similar stores. They have clear expectations. They have even zoned kind of their requirements, and there's a very clear detailed logic already with technical detail, even products and kind of component parts. Yeah, so there's where at the product level we can nearly go online and just order it. Yeah, and there are even then with that specialized contractors that have specialized on the installation or assembly of those systems. Yeah, so at that point you have actually reasonable amount of control and certainty. Good, you may have different options on some, yeah, but that is you can kind of make the selections that are reasonable. And then we had on the other side where you may be in a more explorative project where you don't even yet know how to maybe build the foundations in the soil conditions. Yeah, so if you're in a building harbor installation in a swamp, yeah, good. You can go to a certain degree with good geology into this and good surveyors that kind of explore this. But if you really want to have comprehensive insights, then there is often either extensive surveying involved, or you have to start trialing and see what the results are. And at that point, you are still in the explorative phase. So you're probably looking here at changes or new contracts, even additional work packages that may emerge. Yeah. Now, another one is actually the consideration: how willing are you to go in with risk? Now, for me, this comes in the literature typically from an investor's perspective, yeah. And then the risk is often here the typical portfolio approach, where you're considering at what risk level can you actually invest that money to maybe you have shareholders or other silent stakeholders, yeah, that actually use this for kind of long-term investment, yeah, to get returns on the investment. Then this is a perspective where you normally look really at the risk profile. So some projects may be considered to be okay to have a higher risk, yeah, but this depends then very much on the investor's appetite. So they normally balance this in a portfolio. Yeah, and the typical idea here is basically the opportunity gain, yeah, or potential additional return on the investment versus how risky this is. So yeah, if you know that 10 of your projects, one goes wrong, yeah, then you have that rates you basically in, and you can price that in, and then in accordance, you can balance your portfolio against that. Now, time at which the contractor is introduced into the process can be another one. Yeah, so you may be in a situation that you have good relationships with contractors, or you want to first get an insight, yeah, a more detailed insight to be actually knowledgeable about it yourself. So you may work upfront yourself to develop capabilities, yeah, to understand the project better, what you're trying to deliver. You may do this internally or again externally with consultants, which by irony would probably as well be contracts. Yeah, but you can develop this way upfront some capability, maybe even designs, yeah, and so on. And I think in most infrastructure construction and building related formats, we are familiar with this, yeah. Or you may have even a designated project capability, yeah, that actually leads you through that front end process. You may have other requirements at the front end, like land acquisition. So you may play additional parts to just building a product, yeah. So that can be an important part of this. And in other cases, I think hinted earlier, contractor involvement. So particular if you go offsite manufactured, or you do something like a turnkey, yeah. So with manufacturing products or parts of your building, yeah, modular, be it a panel or kitting strategies, all kind of wonderful delivery systems, you can do this, then it's often very important to get them even involved at the front end, a very front end, maybe even conception or initiation phase, to actually make sure you bring the right constraints into your design, or you basically embed it in the project life cycle from the very front, so that all the future iterations of your process are actually informed on this. There's as well a question of how capable you are able, or how capable you are in management of changes, variations through the use of schedules. So this is again control of timing to a degree. Yeah? I mean, there's as well the opposite. The lean last planner approach is probably the counter movement of building more or less with a team that you have at hand the best schedule that you can have available. So that is kind of top down versus bottom up. But yeah, not normally there's a question, do you control that at the work package level? Can you actually go into that? Do your agreements allow this to even kind of go into workflow, work activities or task on site, right? So that is part of how you structure the constructs, of course. Yeah, there can be clauses about identifying and allocating risks. So there's a good and the bad and the ugly of this. So the good is you give, of course, the risk to the capable party that can do it. And then the bad is you kind of try to package it that the party that has money is paying for it, yeah, and this is probably sensible. But if they're as well defining what the risk is, this is normally risky in itself, yeah. And the ugly is pressing the risk all on the weakest party that can't say no. So there's actually substantial literature on this. And as you can guess, if something goes wrong in the last two cases, it normally goes substantially wrong. So this is often short-term solutions in terms of process to get an investment over the border. But then we have these wonderful risk unfolding into issues, and then at some point potentially dangers or hazards. And you basically can muck up actually otherwise good projects just based on the contracts. Organizational structures can play into this. So yeah, do you have set hierarchies, reporting channels? So particular where you have set structures. So I'm thinking here as well of reporting to reporting requirements. You often have to have a mirroring of those channels to be able to communicate and actually engage and oblige to your obligations contractually. Requirements for insurance, maybe there as well, security, retention, performance bonds, guarantees. Yeah, so by the way, this is quite different from yeah, I wanted to say from country to country, but this is even more fine-tuned even from contract to contract, and industries have their own flavors to it, what they prefer, what they don't prefer. So that is actually quite a mixed bag, but it's very powerful. So I mean, to show you one example, the joke in Switzerland and Germany was always like, yeah, you do a building and you're fully insured, and the building goes wrong. Hey, no problem. You start again. You have the money again. Yeah. So I mean, it's not fully true this way, but there's an element from it. So insurance can go a long way, and it can kind of de-risk for the clients if used appropriately, right? So if you then still don't have capable parties, right, then you have just the first the dilemma. Yeah, availability and balance sheets of suitable providers. Yeah, so this is again, do we actually have a market, or do we have a base of capable providers? Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying already here capable. So suitable is actually the first one. Yeah, so that is normally the question of searching how you can package your individual work packages from the work breakdown of a project. So do you want to do this, or do you actually even get somebody to do this for this? This is normally then the contractor that can do that. Um, Budget constraints or performance and of completion. Uh, um, so budgets may be set, and they should be set on appropriate delivery of the project, but there are not often timelines involved. Just if you think about finance and economics, you will have interest rates, material price fluctuation, currency fluctuations and so on. So once you are in a certain context, you have actually a lot of moving objects. Yeah, so budgets is normally always a level of an estimate. And if you have done it well, you have created contingencies and maybe with reference classes kind of build as well additional extensions of the budget for specific risks. So that is normally better, but often clients budgets are set at the cost-cutting exercise. Yeah, so budgets have as well as signaling signaling element effect. So if you set the budget higher than what the industry is used to, then they will be normally very successful in spending this as well. If it's justified in better quality, then this normally happens as well. You can materialize better quality if it's just a bigger budget, because there's an overestimation of what the prices were, or I think we discussed it in class, the disconnect between the guys that are involved in the budgeting and the procurement actually, then to the actual people on site, the builders that actually carry the costs, right, and have the budget then available. Yeah, then you are actually in trouble. And then there's of course as well the long-term certainty. Yeah, so how does the environment and the context in which you're delivering your product or service actually change? Yeah, so in technology development, where we have horrendous examples of, I'm thinking here of DVD, mini disc, and all that before iTunes and drives started, right? So there were a furious technology race that were incrementally innovating, then arguably wonderful products, but then was just a question of timing, who was first on the market, who got customers to buy their products. And at that point, they nearly had no chance because the infrastructure was more expensive than the products, right? And it then de-incentivized it. But I mean, here at the moment, we have as well long-term certainty issues, right, with how people use the infrastructure. Will we still use infrastructure in 20 or 30 years the same way, or not? Yeah. So arguably, where we are going at the moment as well, electrification, and we have other big agendas that may play into transformation of how we organize, how we live as a society, and so on. Yeah, so they may play into this too. Okay, now here was the perspective that really resonated with me. That was from Prasetya, Denziel, and Bright. So they had actually kind of looked at this in a systematic literature review that they do at the moment, a series at the University College London on supply chain strategies for mega and major projects. And I really like that typology because I went as well a little bit in the series to show actually where often the framing comes from, yeah, or why are we so driven by this in certain areas. And so in stage one, which they see here as a front end where you decide your procurement strategy framework, they see the market conditions playing into this. Yeah, so on deciding if you can outsource or package it, or have an interface strategy, to gradually procure each element as you're going along, as you become more aware of what you're actually doing. Yeah, and then this feeds back then into here in this case analyzed mega project characteristics, but this is a little bit your project characteristics. Yeah, so here you can have things like what is your product actually that you're building? Are you building a bridge? Are you as well responsible for the road layer? Are you creating value for the local community? Yeah, so does it connect with cycle paths or pavements that connect you? Are you considering in the different parts of how you're actually dealing with the different users? So that is a value creation element. Yeah, and then is there are there different types of requirements that could be considered? Then the goals itself play into this. Yeah, so is the project just the delivery and hand it over to operators, or is the goal here to build it and actually operate it yourself? Yeah, and then internal capabilities. So that is something we haven't really talked about too much about, but how mature are you actually in your procurement strategies that you're deploying, right? So can you actually assess technically and as well legally, economically, and yeah, so different capabilities play into this here. How well your vehicles, your contracts actually work, and can you deliver as well in those delivery modes actually appropriately? Yeah, so that comes to the stage 2 here. The delivery mode can be different project models. Yeah, so I'm thinking here along like the project to actually build it, and then maybe extended asset life. Yeah, so you're as well responsible for running it. Then you're probably in the yeah, maybe we build and operate scenarios, and or are you more in the kind of just doing the construction? Yeah, so you get a design, and now you engineer it and procure it and construct it. Yeah, then maybe you have to do some more detailed design, but then ultimately it goes already to tender and you compete against the market, right? So and do you know then how to tender this as a capability? Yeah, and then you hear here already this ultimately defines as well the contract model, and here they mean the contract model as well as a way of thinking about how you are actually how you are actually setting your contract up to motivate to build the right kind of relationship. Are you kind of just asking them to build something that you know very well and where you understand quality and how it should be built? Then then there's probably an emphasis on looking into this and having the focus of the contract being in that space. Yeah, or is it the other way around? Are you somewhere on a project where you need to learn yourself about it, but you have understood how to do the project management? Yeah, then you can as well go on that journey and maybe create a contract format where you incentivize the learning together, maybe innovation for future projects. Then there are certain vehicles and motivations that may relate to the pricing or how you want to compensate the involved parties. And then this ultimately defines as well how you should think about your tender strategy. Yeah, so what goes into the tender strategy? So that is kind of the last point, and that then goes into the tender process, and hopefully you find capable parties or you are the capable party to deliver this. Yeah, so you get the contract awards, and then you have, of course, the management of the contract to the delivery and the handover, and with the contract, of course, the transaction of delivered parts against compensation, whatever was agreed, right? Now, in that space, and we haven't tackled this too much, we have actually very cool theorems. So I think the most intuitional one, once you have worked in industry, is the transaction cost theory. Yeah, it's quite simple. It's you think of transaction. Yeah, so you ask me to do something, then this comes at your cost. Yeah, and we exchange this. I do this in exchange for you paying me for it. Yeah. And the transaction cost theory goes actually very far. So a lot of this is even embedded in how a lot of people go shopping in the supermarket. Yeah, so there's this idea: do I get good price? Yeah, so there's yeah, I won't go too much into it, but it's a very cool theorem to look at it. In project management, we are as well quite often used to the resource-based view. So that is kind of the idea that it's you're trying to yeah, resource-based view is actually about the optimal utilization of your resources to deliver something. Yeah, and then the internal mechanism here, or the project vehicle, is actually the optimization of how you're using the resources to deliver this at the optimal kind of cost saving, resource saving, and so on. And yeah, that is a very common focus as well. Stage one is often as well about the stakeholders' expectations and requirements, and there's as well a dynamic in it. So priority of stakeholders, how they're actually having the ability to influence the process, or how they want to stay informed, and so on. Complexity theory is another one, yeah. So of how much you can actually control and know, and complexity often hints that if you have dynamics that are out of your control, then it's important to kind of test. And I mean, once you come into a turbulent environment, yeah, you are normally in a sphere where chaos plays. Yeah, I hope you won't experience too many projects of that kind, but this can happen. Yeah, so where you find layers of what's not in your control, and then it's quite easy that subsystems actually influence your project so much that they become something totally different. That is very unlucky, I should say, and we should look carefully for this, yeah, that it doesn't happen. But you know, examples here are extreme weather events, and as well maybe where the use of a particular product or service completely changes, or maybe legislation and our insights about it change. Yeah, so I think from 5 years ago, I would have said here that this was a German example of nuclear power. Nowadays, this has shifted again. So yeah, so 5 years ago, nuclear power was not popular in Germany, and so there was a clear political will to stop it all and close it all down. And that was out of political extreme events with Fukushima, the tsunami that actually flooded the area and cut down the system, or cut down systems of the nuclear power plant, which then led to a meltdown of one of the cooling systems of the reactors, and a shutdown of the cooling system, and then slight melting of the reactor, not complete meltdown. But anyway, the point here is at that point, this is not what your project environment actually gives you. So you are suddenly probably in a very different place if you have any project in that sphere, be it maintenance or be it even closing stations down. Yeah, then even those have suddenly piled up and accelerated. Okay, system theory and governance theory. Another one, governance theory is often very relevant. System theory is normally more the bread and butter of us as engineers. So this is as well normally the systems of systems theory that becomes very relevant once you go in the bigger projects. And here's normally again the idea of breaking it down in the different parts or modules and trying to analyze first of all what the functions are, and then looking at the interfaces of how it relates to the overall system. Now that is often the front end when it comes to selecting and using the delivery the project actually moves into delivery. In the procurement sphere, we have often additionally a utility theory. Yeah, so do we get, is this the best utility we can get out of the project for what we are paying or for the effort? Then principal agent theory is quite interesting. So there's actually agency in general. So how do different parties go into the project? What is their interest? How are they influencing the project lifecycle? How it plays out? Right. Again, with contracts, we are trying to mediate this. If it goes in risky direction, if it goes in the right direction, we try to incentivize it even more. Right. So that's the idea. And this brings you to the next one, incentive theory about motivation, how you incentivize. So that is another one. Auction theory is another one. So kind of trying to get the best bid using the momentum, right, from maybe auctioneering is very similar to as well game theory, incentive theory. So good theories to kind of try to predict, simulate, get a feeling for potential dynamics. Those theories are actually quite powerful in that space. And then again, governance theory, and then contract theory itself. So contracts as well, psychological contracts and social contracts or a professional contract. Yeah, so you have you have a feeling of duty and responsibility. So those can be very strong conceptions to actually start thinking about how contracts impact and how they may play out. Yeah, so quite cool perspectives actually. Okay, so anyway, this was a thorough overview of this, hence systematic literature review. Now, when we come to the contracts, common standards forms are. Oh, now this would be a question. Which one did you just read? So common ones, general conditions of contract for design and construct, accounts actually for 23% of total contracts. Then we have the AS 4000. So that is the general conditions of contract for construct only. So that is 80% of all standardized contracts used. Then the AS 2124. That is general conditions of contract. So that is 70% of all contracts. And then you have the AS 4902. So again, AS always Australian standard. Sorry, I should have really explained that. Is for contract for design and construct. Is that correct? Oh, that keeps me on my toes. So the first one is project management, right? Oh yeah, okay. So other forms, actually I have the detailed one. I just copied this over because I wasn't quite happy with that list. I mean, it gives you a good overview what are the most common ones, but as I already indicated in class, so coming from Europe, I'm as well used to other contract forms and other legislative setup. So it's like I just wanted for completion to at least have them on a list. I list them again when we come actually to contracts to our lecture. But yeah, so FIDIC is another big framework that is actually globally quite popular. The GC21 is as well quite popular, but I have other ones here as well. I mean, I won't go through all of them. As you can see, there are the NEC ones. I added them, and yeah, so it's a quick overview, and I've tried to as well give you at least applications where they are used. A lot of those are framework, so you can kind of navigate it, and they are suite, and they are referential. So I mean, from your reading this week, you should be able to navigate this already to a degree. Yeah, so this is the example of FIDIC. It's nearly a framework, how you can use them and what you use them for. And yeah, so you can see there as well everything turnkey project to plan, design, build. Oh yeah, by the way, there was as well the one that was missing there. And they come often as well with recommendations for incentivization and how to kind of set this up. Now, this is just one standard contract selection tool. Be aware that there are quite a few, and this is, of course, as well a legal consultancy sphere. They have, of course, their recommended setups. Normally, they're specialized in particular contracts. There's a good reason for it, because they all have their kind of focus, legal implications in certain countries, and how they are as well enforced. So there's anything from more industry level arbitration and then court focus to actually going straight to legal spheres for kind of understanding who's right and wrong. So yeah, so quite a variety that comes with this. Now we have as well contract payment options with this. I have to admit the first three are categories by itself that we will have a closer look at. So the cost plus is there are all kinds of variation, as well fixed price, all kinds of variations of this. Then you have as well a schedule of rates. Yeah, so that can be another one that is that common? I was just thinking, so maybe if you're working with particular trades, this can be quite common. Maximum price guarantee, yeah, so it won't cost more than this. That is particular when it comes to turnkey or you have certain packages of uncertainty, but it has been balanced by whoever you're working with, contractor or maybe turnkey manufacturer or something like that. Yeah, they may do this. Maybe incentive schemes. So I mentioned here, you may be interested in learning as well. You may want to incentivize innovation or collaborative innovation. Yeah, so if you have different parties, actually this is what Peter Yimin, your tutor, is studying at the moment. So we are working at the moment on the Building 4.0 CRC. And there we are looking actually at traditional boundaries between companies, bringing them together and looking together at technology or innovation that can benefit both parties. But if you don't have both involved, then you actually miss out on the benefits from, for example, data collection for operating certain machines. Yeah. So you can, of course, nowadays with wonderful algorithms, easily think about optimization, feedback on how well the machines run. But often this means you have to bring kind of manufacturer and operate that together. Yeah, and that is exactly, that's fair, where incentive schemes or business model innovation can be actually quite powerful, thinking of maybe joint ventures for projects, yeah, at company level, or you can incentivize it in partnerships or joint ventures in the projects. Yeah. Term payments, so meeting the terms and conditions, then you get paid. Target costs can be something. So this is normally where you work towards a product and you set that as a boundary. I mean, target cost, I know that as well from quality, and target timing can be as well something in certain industry less common. Target cost, I think, is quite popular at the moment in the Australian context here in infrastructure. They all have as well their own kind of games that come with them. Guaranteed maximum price or cost reimbursement. Yeah, that is probably the most flat one. So this is normally based within the same company. This is probably the most common one, but yeah, there are multiple forms. Antuna has actually summarized this very well. Yeah. Now then, procurement strategies. Here we had drawn out some of the most common one. Again, the systematic literature review that I reference you there. They have a list of 20 more. Yeah, so so just to tell you that is a selection of most common one. So separating here in traditional construction management, design and construct, alliance, early contract engagement, and public-private partnership. Oh, this is a Victorian guide for mega and major projects. I just realized that, sorry. Yeah, wrong reference. So that is actually the guide of how to select your procurement strategy here for Victorian government. The Treasury has actually that guide, yeah. And then this is as well an important element. So the role of relationships and trust. So normally the principal starts with a choice of design, but once they have contracted the work, they are more constrained. So I mean, it goes both ways, right? Once you sign the contract as a engineering service company, right? I mean, they can change it, but then the contract has to change, right? So we, or they have to pay. And with a new contract, yeah, this is very popular in Germany. So whenever there's a change or issue, like lump sum, do this. So you end up actually with this trail of additional contracts. But yeah, so there are different forms that are being used there. Yeah, and they encourage as well different relationships. So at the moment, actually, as well, the total cost is normally incentivizing a learning culture. So actually, this is quite interesting. So Peter Love and Jane Matthews, I think that they're researching this at the moment as a accidental failure culture. So this is not to say that we make, I mean, failures can be accidental, but there's looking at this at overcoming a blame culture. So recognizing kind of that you can learn from failure. And if you start doing this systematically, you can actually already within the project come to a culture where you pick earlier up indicators of something going wrong, and or you have even solutions of how in the past those problems were tackled, and ultimately arrive at a stronger setup that leads to improvement. But again, it's upfront, it needs trust and all kinds of other ones. Actually, Peter and Jane argue there as well for a certain secrecy as a resilience mechanism, yeah, so that companies can actually recover. But yeah, it's tricky. It depends a little bit on what the culture is within your project. A contract may as well encourage key suppliers to work for the benefits of the principal. So we had that already, the incentivization and the selection process. Normally tenders is key step for principal to choose strong partners, but is often dominated by price only because cash flow is always constrained. By the way, this doesn't have to be this way. Yeah, so there are odd examples, but I think this is for the majority of our industry the case. Yeah, I mean, there. Okay, I name some opposites. So pig farms are a funny one. Don't know how or why, but pig farms. There are some contractors that take upfront full payment. Yeah, so but they're very good at it. So clients actually go with this. So it's more or less a turnkey project. And yeah, it's not really tendered. So you kind of treat this as a nearly purchasing strategy. Yeah, so it's like, yeah. But I mean, it's one example. Yeah, there are many more where this makes sense in surprising areas. But normally the intention is to actually look at the tender to get an idea. You know, what are the innovative ideas to solve your problem or your building or so on, and then compare on the basis of ideally quality, yeah, and how well it actually caters for what you're trying to do, how it creates maybe value for money or value for the community, value proposition. Yeah, so which value proposition fits actually better? Yeah, but yeah, the comment is correct. It's often down to the price and who can offer it cheapest. Yeah. Hoping that they all understand what they're getting themselves into. So there's normally as well then the realization of what you didn't realize you didn't know. Yeah. Anyway, contractors are often a way of mediating this. Yeah. So they're focusing on finishing, tend to have a hierarchical relationship with workers. So this often means subcontracting. Yeah. More normally smaller subcontractor. This is not always the case. So it depends a little bit where you are. We had some projects here where building service engineers were similar size like some of the contractors. Yeah, so then you have a different dynamic there, but often hierarchical. Yeah. Who is involved? Client. Yeah, this is often maybe linked to a funding agency if they need funding. If not, they may have still internal financial requirements of how they have to deal with a budget that they bring into the project, or the money that they're bringing in, or resources and so on. Authorities, you may have a legal environment, of course, which you're interacting in, so you probably want to oblige to the rules of engagement there. You may have facility managers that run the asset, right, that have their requirements of what they're expecting from the product or service you're developing. The operators themselves that actually have, again, their requirements, maybe their clients in mind, what the newest technological advancements are. So I think in class we talked about a hospital. Yeah, so often you have there people like medical staff, right, that have expectations. Maybe you have new services offered from medical professions that have new technologies that they're bringing in, right, which changes the setup of the hospital, of how it's designed, or what the requirements are, right? So that, and you may have new diseases or something like that, right? And you have to think in new formats of treatments. So then that can all play into this. And the more you fix this, of course, the earlier in the project life cycle, the more likely it is to be out of date, when you actually deliver it. So there are funny clauses of how clients try to navigate this. For example, you're not allowed to buy any of the gadgets 3 months before the hospital opens, which at a hospital scale can be quite tricky, which means you have to probably pre-order the right quantity with whatever the up-to-date gadget is. So you get the idea. You have suddenly wonderful contingencies in there that may come as surprises later. Then project manager to facilitate the project phases, right, to get there. And then maybe as well expert consultants at all kind of points of time that come in and out. Consultants, quantity surveyors that may help you in costing or packaging it, or all kinds of other advisory roles. Supervision consultants, and then the actual contractors, and then the design consultants. And this looks very much to me still like the front end. So at that point we are not even talking about trades and site operations and so on, right? Okay, so traditional contract, normally principal or client, maybe advised by consultants, having the contract with a contractor, and the contractor then delivering with the subcontractors. Now, that is one format. Another one is the construction management, very common. Here you often have the design already. So to explain that quickly, principal or client has already designed, consultant, engineer, architect. So they kind of engineered design consultants comes in. Oh yeah, let's do one after the other. So design consultants have already provided kind of design. So there's maybe still space for some technical design, but it's more or less already set. And then the construction manager acts on behalf of the principal with the subcontractors, and that is as agent of principal. So you still have here the legal direct tie, whereas in the previous one you could see the legal tie was actually between the contractor and subcontractor. So enters here the construction manager enters here in the trade constructs as agent and principal, and there's an iteration where construction manager enters into contracts with subcontractors in their own right. So that is a separate risk profile, right? Now, design and construct contract. Here you have the principal or client, again with a contractor, and then the consultant may advise the contractor. So this is often where there's a question if you want to, if the contractor is normally here as well checking if the market can do this cheaper. To tell narratives from the UK. This actually fascinated me in a tier 1 contractor in England. This was more popular despite this contract. Yeah, they would do the design, the technical, often even very fine technical design, suiting their own building team that could deliver this, and then still internally they prefer to actually get other contractors or builders to deliver this. Because they felt they had more power. Yeah, so within the company they had different relationships, which the contract or the management team didn't appreciate too much. Yeah, so that there can be as well something about how much you're in charge and control, and how much other pressures, company pressures, maybe play into this. Yeah. Yeah. And then you have the innovation of a contract. So this is principal or client has a contract or control with a designer. And then there's the alteration principal or client, this relationship with a contract with the contractor. So here the relationship has a contract and control reaching through the contractor to the designer or contractor. So both are kind of alterations. And then, yeah, the following. So normally the designer or contractors don't build it themselves, so they do this again with subcontracting, right? Now, project management is normally the whole process. So here, this is often whole project lifecycle process. Yeah. So here, normally the principal or client has a head agreement with a project manager, and gets probably as well advice from the consultants. And this then often lead into a subcontract with a construction contract. So that is then the main contractor again delivering this. Yeah, this is where a common format. And last one is actually the alliance one. So this is often owner. Is it owner and designer and constructor? So I mean, I would normally kind of probably see that as a party that comes together. It helps if they have the design capability. It helps if they have as well the contractor or constructor capability. But yeah, so I mean, ultimately an alliance could be everyone, right? So they are fully integrated organization forms under alliance, whereas well trades and so on could be there. Catera was a famous example that tried to actually embody this. They wanted to have this traditional master builder image of having everybody work in one company, and to optimize and kind of reduce the fragmentation between different organizational capabilities, and creating this like kind of integrated delivery mechanism. We have that as well, integrated project delivery in frames like this, but this is hard and not often done. So if you do this, you kind of carry, of course, a coordination cost. If you do really innovate a lot, then it makes sense. Yeah, but it's hard. Now, there were as well alliance pros and cons. So the most common one is probably there's a high focus on collaboration to deliver the project. The risks are shared between alliances. So gain share, pain share, gain share is an analogy here. The alliance partners can be selected to price competition or non-price factors. Actually, often it's important that you build good relationships, because those often alliances are normally done when you have a program of projects. So at that point, you're probably trying to build a good relationship, and cheapest price is not always a good strategy. So often in the procurement there, you use a dialogue or multiple tender phases to kind of make sure that you have a good fit, that the concepts and design work as well, and that you have the right working relationship. And yeah, it allows as well for flexibility. Yeah, the cons, often the project is poorly defined when the line starts. Yeah, often not on purpose. This is often more down to the uncertainty or still things that are changing. So this normally means you have still a lot of uncertainty at the front end, and there's a lack of clarity on price and scope. or often you have powerful parties that haven't yet agreed what the scope really is. And by the way, this can be super tricky as well as a project manager if you have a project like this. So you may have as well different dynamic playing out there. Now, quite interesting here was kind of summary about how the performance is. So that is actually cost performance against time performance. And you can see here that when we come to benchmark study and alliancing, we can see that some actually perform very well. Yeah, so they're all somehow around this. If you think in Cartesian coordinates, you would probably say the minus quadrant is doing actually well. There are quite a few projects in this space, and that means this is actually quite amazing. But more scarily, there are as well some in the top right, and this means you have them going over on cost and time performance, right? So this is of course better, but again, I would challenge this a little bit. If this is yeah, so there is actually have a look at biases with Ben Fluberg and compare that maybe to Peter Love and Dominic's work. So they are kind of opposing views on this, which can be quite interesting in that space. Yeah, alliances can save money. Normally they can deal with the uncertainty. So particularly if you are not sure, this can be quite enforcing. Yeah, it depends a little bit how you structure it this way with the pricing mechanisms and contracts. So this is quite important to think here of contingencies. So at alliance level, I mean, it's not pretty written here, but at that point, you normally look at the multi-project environment, and that means you can as well offload the risk of the projects of some projects against other projects. And so if you know there's some learning, yeah, the assumption is there that you learn from one project to the other if they're somehow closely related. Then you can normally assume that maybe upfront the projects are a little bit more expensive, and later if you focus and fine tune on delivery, you can actually probably get that back out of the project. But yeah, so those are some of the challenging settings. Yeah, I mentioned the pain share, gain share already. And then there was a setup for the special purpose vehicle. Yeah, so is it always done this way? No. So the special purpose vehicle is actually kind of an organizational unit, yeah, that can have multiple layers, of course, and hierarchies in itself. So in many mega projects, you have, of course, very big teams that look after the projects within that. So this depends as well a little bit, but it's often in relation with a concession agreement between government and then the project company, and then you have kind of financiers and sponsors and stakeholders and experts sitting there. By the way, this includes as well ministries, other stakeholders and so on, right? So yeah, and then you have as well the escrow agent and revenue customer community, so which can be treasury and other parties there. So yeah, but that was a good kind of start off, I think, to give you a snapshot of what we will kind of cover in a lot more detail. So keep in mind, each slide here is probably a lecture by itself, but we will dive into this a little bit. Current trends, actually we are moving still to PPPs. So at the moment, our topic is kind of actually what I try to research at the moment, open innovation. So I'm looking at the moment of how we are using co-design, co-capital, yeah, so crowdsourcing as well, and embedding this, embedding contributions as well. So that comes as well down to looking at how can you actually later users or businesses that want to go into the spaces come early in and co-design. So rather than having this waiting of setting then the shop or the license or whatever, bringing them in upfront and letting them actually co-design, invest, so that the solutions are more bespoke. So I mean, just from my literature review and my initial interviews, I'm looking here at projects in Berlin and some projects here in Australia as well. I can see that we see that all we are de-risking enormously the uncertainty. You bring certainty in, right? You know what you're using it for. Actually, it becomes so concrete that you have somebody that can say like, yeah, that is what I want, and happy. Yeah, you have de-risked. You really know what success means, what value for money is for that person, right? So at that point, you have actually reduced uncertainty enormously, but already taking actually the stakeholders on that co-development, co-investment journey can be very powerful, because you build a closer relationship as well with your stakeholders, which should enable better communication. Yeah. Alliance is as well a big one at the moment. So early contractor involvement is a hot one. That's down to pre-manufacturing, trying to standardize spaces. It's a big topic at the moment, but there are some more. So I stop with this. We will go in a lot more depth, and we will have guests that talk about the recent trends. So I don't want to set that too much yet up. You will see agendas have changed actually a little bit, and there are new topics at the moment, but we look into that together. Yeah. Okay, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Otherwise, if I haven't met you yet, welcome digitally as well on board. Make sure you join the team. If you haven't done so, reach out to us and let us help you find a team. And for next week, we have our first reading due, so make sure you do that. We have as well our first quiz in the workshop, so make sure you attend if you want the 2 points. If you can't attend, don't worry, it's just 2 points. It will be difficult to do this remotely because you will probably miss the context of the workshop. So indirectly, you will miss out on the 2 points if you can't attend. Yeah. We have as well, from a team point, at the end of Wednesday, the team contract to be uploaded. Make sure you decide as well on a team leader, because those emails will be sent actually to Ingenuity, our simulation, to get in touch to help you guys set up in the simulation. Okay, that is it for me for now. Happy project, and I see you next week, Wednesday. Bye-bye.